Hi all, welcome to Boulders Battles in Miniature. Amazingly, less than 2 years distance between the last battle report. So this is actually a battle report that was played sometime in the summer last year in 2019. No, 2020. My God, the world is going mental. Or maybe just me. And it was between the lockdown period where you could actually meet outside in people's gardens. So decided to have a game of Bag the Hun over at my house outside. Obviously, we needed to make sure it was absolutely 100% safe, so COVID security was very serious. Obviously, Newcastle Brown is a well-known antivirus. We made sure we had plenty of sanitizer, and I even got the old gas mask out. This is battle. We were doing some Pacific battles. I really like this table. One of the guys from the club did the design for me. I think it's a Ukrainian company that actually prints it. It's only thin. It's not like rubberized, um, but I think with obviously the hexagonals on it that's all set up for Bag the Hun literally cost 15-20 quid or something like that for a 6x4 table, which is great. And it being the Pacific, I mean, it probably could have just been blue really, but we like the fact that there's some islands and things on it. Obviously a Newcastle brown and sanitizer cocktail ready to get started. And this is Andy. Now, unfortunately, for those of you who know, poor old Andy passed away last year. He'll be sorely missed by us all. I can't say that Bag the Hun was his favourite game. He used to really enjoy playing it, but Andy was absolutely amazing, knowledgeable on all things to do with aerial warfare. He even wrote his own rules, and I think Bag the Hun for me is a fun, really good game. Bit like as I say, like bit like Bolt Action when it's like reading a Commando comic. It doesn't necessarily have some of the historical flavour other rule sets give you, but I absolutely love the game. And Andy was kind enough to come over for a game, and it's actually one of the last times we ever got to play, unfortunately, which was great. Obviously, I managed to cut the grass there, but it would look that the weeds in the background have been left to become slightly overgrown. So we started off a battle, and Andy was the Japanese with 3 zeros, and I was going to play the Americans with 3 Corsairs. So we each had an ace and a wingman and another guy. So it's only a really small battle. We sometimes we've played this game with sort of like 8 people on it, which is absolutely mental. Um, but this one it was just the two of us. Now, obviously, aerial photography is notoriously difficult, hence why so many of these pictures will be out of focus. The little white dice that we've got are to signify the height of the plane, and we have got some little black ones that we use for ammo, but seeing there was only a couple of us, we were just writing it down on a bit of paper. The Japanese zero with red markings is the ace, the Corsair with yellow markings is the ace, and unfortunately, those of you who've played the game know it can sometimes be quite difficult to shoot planes down in this because you draw the card and you sometimes get right behind somebody, but you've already had your shooting action, or just before you go to shoot, your opponent moves and moves off. It becomes a lot easier when you've got aces, and both of these were our aces. Now, unfortunately, we both flew towards each other, got into this position, and I really, really luckily drew the card to allow me to fire. Did so much damage that actually destroyed the Japanese ace. So with an American ace, a wingman and another guy versus two just normal regular zeros, it was going to be a really, really difficult game. There's another slightly better picture. I'm not sure if it is any slightly better. Now, that was my ace taking some pot shots on his own. Um, this other guy decided to take some pot shots at this other Japanese zero, and amazingly, again, in one turn of shooting, absolutely destroyed him and blew him up as well. I think both of them actually blew up. So, literally within like the first 10 minutes of a game, we'd managed to shoot down, or I'd managed to shoot down, 2/3 of the Japanese force that was on here. Now it was going to be really, really difficult. So obviously at this point I said, look, let's just pretend that the other Japanese guy was actually the top ace. So we made the Japanese guy the top ace, which proved to be a very interesting game. So this Japanese top ace that had obviously been masquerading as a regular to draw the Americans in, single-handedly went on to do over the entire rest of my force. We had all sorts of things. There was cockpits going, there was instrument panels damaged, oil coming out, fuel coming out, and this guy just basically proceeded to take my entire air force apart. So here's my top ace. Ended up getting shot. He was actually going to crash, I believe, and in Bag the Hun, you don't actually automatically bail out. You've even got to roll. I'm guessing it was quite difficult to bail out at times, especially when your plane had been shot up. So you've actually got to roll to bail out. And this Japanese ace just continued to proceed after all my guys. Now, we do like, well, I like element of fun. I hope those that play like element of fun in the games, because that's pretty much all you're going to get from me. So the American top ace got shot down and blew up. His wingman got shot down and blew up. And then the last American got shot down, managed to bail out, just managed to get his parachute to open, literally before he crashed into the sea, and then landed on what we'd classed as a Japanese held island. So the chances for this American guy who'd just been part of a combat that had seen 2 Japanese die, then landing on a Japanese held island, I don't like his chances too much, I'm afraid. And this is just as we'd put it down just to signify that the plane crashed into the sea. But the pilot did actually make it out. We've not got any little parachute thing. I'll have to make some. This is him chasing off my ace. My ace had got engine problems, which had forced him to start heading off. But Andy was having none of it. He thought, right, no, I'm going to send my guy after you. And he was absolutely intent on shooting me down. Now, these planes I love. They're tumbling dice planes, 1/600, I think, and they actually paint up really nicely. There's just enough detail in them where ink can get into the little grooves. Now, I must admit, I notice this close-up. I'm going to stop taking close-up photos. I've managed to get a big dab of white over the Japanese cockpit. Most times you can't notice it because it's much too far away, but I do hate when I get smudges on things. And my ace was just turning all over the place, trying to get away, and this Japanese ace just kept coming after him and after him and after him. He was determined to get him. Eventually, he did actually blow him up as well. So the chase went on. Actually, I think there is one more picture, and then my guy has actually been shot down. I think I was having to roll all the time for fuel that was coming out. So every time Andy did the damage, the chances of him blowing me up became more and more. Andy was barely using any ammo. Obviously, any ones you roll in Bag the Hun is ammo used up, and if you roll more ones or ammo usages than you roll hits in any one turn of fire, and your guns jam, and it can be quite difficult to unjam because you've got to fly straight and level for a full turn. Then you've still got to take a dice roll. So sometimes when your guns jam, it's really hard to get back in. But this Japanese ace was taking pot shots at me and barely using any ammo. And here's the last picture of the game. It was actually one from earlier on in the game before we set up. Because if you look at just next to the pencil on the other island up there, that's a full Japanese force. The reason I put it on is this is a classic look from Andy. Whenever you used to play Bag the Hun, something would happen where no, that's not right. That's not how these aircraft work. That's a slight different so and so. and I used to laugh my head off so much, especially when we were having group games. Andy used to put on some group games where he was like act as a GM or he'd join in sometimes. And no matter what he did, no matter what he planned, everybody else just goes completely crazy and does something else anyway. And the look of despair on his face as we're all having such a laugh around him. But yeah, he was a great guy. Sadly missed, and you know, I for one am really pleased that I got to spend some gaming time with him. All right, everybody, speak to us all later. You never know, you might get another one of these in a short period.